Vanishing Grace is a narrative-driven game that takes you on a journey through a future wasteland to find your best friend, Grace. You'll cruise across the barren earth in your hovercraft, solving puzzles and trying to find your lost friend. It's the year 2053. Wandering outside the Citadel's safety presumably spells certain death. Is this a journey you should undertake by ponying up some of your real-life cash and buying the game? Well, there are some things we should discuss first. When Vanishing Grace loads, you'll find yourself in an evening desert scene. It starts off whimsically enough, focusing on a little girl and a paper airplane. But since we can never have nice things, soon ominous music starts and the girl holds out her hand asking if you trust her. You run. She tells you not to look back. Of course you look back. Yep, running was a good idea. You make it to safety and the little girl implores you to never leave her. It's actually a lovely intro that starts you off with pretty high hopes for what's to come. You then find yourself sitting in some sort of cafe. You have a multiple choice conversation with Elena through a walkie-talkie. Elena is your wifey, and she is pissed. You've had a fight because your friend Grace has disappeared, and apparently you're the only one who would even bother to go look for her. The conversation's weird and uncomfortable, and feels like something out of a daytime talk show where chairs regularly get thrown. As a player, you don't really walk away liking either of these people very much.
I just want to tell you I'm sorry about the way things ended yesterday.
After you endure the super cringy conversation with Elena, the screen fades to black. From there, day one starts, and you find yourself aboard a hovercraft. You're out in the middle of the desert with nothing but sand, rocks, and a few dead trees to keep you company. You'll soon spy a cassette tape with your name on it. Playing it gets you some exposition from the now vanished Grace. Then, the coolest thing in the game happens. You get a boomerang. I was super excited about this. I instantly flashed to Paul Hogan, all hyped up to indulge my inner Crocodile Dundee. Turns out the only thing you will use this boomerang for is smashing floating blue crystal thingies that provide fuel for your hovercraft. I am Jack's complete and utter disappointment. Breaking crystal thingies is fun initially, but it quickly becomes tedious. The boomerang arcs seem to follow some pattern, but they have nothing to do with any actual physics. There's also no urgency to the crystal smashing. You can miss as much as you want. Your hovercraft just keeps right on rolling. I knew going in that this was a puzzle, story-driven game. Still, I had hoped for at least some boomerang-related combat. You know, smashing some of those post-apocalyptic zombie creatures that are ubiquitous in these sort of settings. Spoilers, there are no such creatures. In fact, there's absolutely no combat. The boomerang bubble bursts pretty early, which is a damn shame because it could have been so much fun. Your hovercraft comprises 3 main areas: the control area, the work area, and the living quarters. You learn how to make the hovercraft go vroom vroom and some arbitrary things that the game makes sound important in order to pilot it, but really aren't. For instance, Vanishing Grace makes this whole big deal about you not letting your ship overheat. Yet I purposely let that thing go all the way into magma-colored red and nothing happened. You can, apparently, totally neglect aspects of your ship, along with your wife and unborn child, with 0 tangible consequences. You bounce back and forth between your character Joel's and Grace's perspective. You manage to get off that hovercraft 3 times during the game. It's almost a blissful feeling to have some change of scenery. Again, don't get too excited. Your time off ship isn't exactly thrilling. You stop, gather some objects, maybe take a photograph with the in-game camera, and that's about it. The developers missed another golden opportunity to make this game better. Give us some exciting locations to explore and things to find. Let us do more than just collect some junk to throw in a box. But alas, you'll just find some objects and head back to the hovercraft. Lather, rinse, repeat. For a story-driven game, the story part isn't incredibly gratifying. endless confession tapes you find from Grace left me rolling my eyes. Vanishing Grace is full of weird exposition and muddy philosophy and half-baked ideas that just come off as convoluted nonsense. None of the characters are likable. They all seem self-serving, vapid, and oblivious. The dialogue is so taxing, I quickly stopped caring where Grace might be or whether she was even alive. Vanishing Grace also does very little to explain what the actual hell is going on with the world. What happened to turn the Earth into a barren wasteland? What is the Citadel? Are there mutant people and animals out there? Is it actually dangerous to be out and about? If you're not going to show us, at least tell us. Give us some more backstory about this epic friendship that is worth potentially losing your albeit failing marriage over. The game is really good at giving you answers to questions you don't even have while deftly avoiding answering the ones that you do.
He has that look in his eye, as if he was screaming out.
Here's the thing. I can overlook one lacking element in a game if the rest is good. If the characters and storyline are lackluster, then dazzle me with great puzzles. Sadly, the puzzles in Vanishing Grace run the gamut from fiddly to insultingly simple. More than once, I was stumped because I thought the solution to some puzzle couldn't be that simple. It was. If you want to be challenged, look anywhere but here. I've had bowls of canned soup that were more complex and nuanced. The graphics in Vanishing Grace are competent, but decidedly bare-boned for much of the game. Details are blurry, especially when you try to read many of the files or notes scattered around the hovercraft, or when you try to inspect non-objective related items outside of the craft.
What can be done with a single rock?
Vanishing Grace isn't horribly buggy, but has some issues. Usable items get stuck in your hands sometimes, things fall through surfaces, objects aren't always immediately responsive, that sort of stuff. More annoyingly, I could not find a save option, and the autosave seems to happen once per in-game day. Twice my headset died mid-chapter, and nothing from that in-game day was saved. If you're going to embark on this adventure, make sure your headset is charged up plenty before you begin. The game's dialogue isn't something you want to have to sit through twice. Vanishing Grace makes me think that somebody took a mediocre short story and decided to make a mediocre game out of it. Everything about it is middle of the road. This is unfortunate because it could have been an interesting title. But between the dull puzzles and the annoying characters, its batting average is pretty low. I won't spoil the ending, but let's say it's underwhelming. Oh, and you'll still totally hate everyone. If you want a light puzzler, you're better off with something like Down the Rabbit Hole or The Curious Case of the Stolen Pets. If you want something more cerebral, you're better off with The Room VR, A Dark Matter, Red Matter, or Mist. Vanishing Grace is a perfect example of a title that takes a promising idea and does the bare minimum with it. It undervalues the better elements it offers and instead goes heavy on overly simple puzzles.
Mentioned in the documents I stole from the Citadel, remember? Apparently it was used as a shelter by a small group of dissidents, but as the climate grew harsher, they were forced to leave it behind. It doesn't feel all that cozy, to tell you the truth.